A black man in California is suing his former employer, alleging the company denied him a job because he refused to cut his locks. The lawsuit alleges Jeffrey Thornton of San Diego was told by a hiring manager he qualified for a job, but if he wanted it, he would have to conform to certain dress and appearance policies. He was told he would have to, quote, cut his hair so that it was off the ears, eyes, and shoulders, and would not allow him to simply tie back his hair in order to do so. Thornton tells CBS MoneyWatch that he started growing his locks in 2019, and they are now 5.5 inches long. He ultimately refused to cut his hair and was denied the position. Thornton says he was surprised his locks were an issue, considering California is more laid back than other states. In fact, California was the first state to pass the Crown Act, legislation that bans companies from discriminating against employees or job applicants based on natural hairstyles, including afros, bantu knots, braids, and cornrows. Thornton's lawsuit alleges the company, Encore Global, is in violation of the Crown Act. This case will be the first to invoke this piece of legislation. I want to bring in CBS MoneyWatch reporter Khristopher Brooks now. Khristopher, great to see you. You have been reporting on this story for a while, and you spoke to Jeffrey Thornton in the course of your reporting. What strikes you most about this case?
Hey, Tanya, really what struck me most was, I guess, what I'm calling sort of an inconsistency of the application of their policies. So you have to know that Jeffrey used to work for Encore Global about 4 years ago, back in his home state of Florida. He worked in the Miami area. And even back then, he was growing his dreads, and it seemed like it was perfectly fine. He never got any type of comments about his hair back then. And it wasn't until he moved to California, to the San Diego area, and he tried to apply for a job with the exact same company that the hair became an issue. So I just saw this inconsistency, I think, where, you know, if you work for a certain company, the policies they set are across all the branches, all the campuses, all the offices, whatever you want to call it. So if you go to one office in Florida, the policy should be the same if you move to, say, San Diego, California. But this man ran into an issue in one state and not the other. So that was sort of, I couldn't really compensate for that in understanding what was going on here.
Right, and it just so happens the other state, the state where he ran into the issue, is a state that has the Crown Act, right? So what else should we know about the Crown Act to understand how this case could be argued and why it is so significant?
Absolutely. So at its core, the Crown Act is really about challenging what it looks like and what it means to be sort of neat and professional and groomed in workplace environments, right? And this law, and in this case, what you might hear argued is, especially in Jeffrey's case, what does the length of my hair or his hair have to do with his ability to perform the job duties at hand? Jeffrey is a audio-visual technician, so he does the audio-video needs for conferences at major hotels. And so in his case, his lawyer's arguing, you know, as long as his hair doesn't interfere with his ability to do his work, there should be no issue about the length of his hair or the style itself.
And the company is now saying, Chris, if I have this correct, that this was all a misunderstanding and they did offer Thornton a job. Is that correct? What reasons are they giving for the misunderstanding?
So Encore Global says that Jeffrey misunderstood the conversation that he had with his hiring manager. It was never one of these situations where it was either, you know, cut the hair or lose the job. It was just that would be an issue if you wanted to continue working here, is what he said, but the company is saying something totally different. And you're right. I did reach out to Encore. They did offer him the job. Jeffrey is still sort of considering whether he wants to take it or not. He's been doing some freelance audio video work right now, sort of helping make ends meet. But from the company standpoint, they're basically saying when he had the conversation with the hiring manager, they were talking past each other, and Jeffrey took it the wrong way.
So is the lawsuit continuing, even though the company is now offering him the job?
It is right now. I'm told from Jeffrey that his lawyer is talking to the legal team at Encore Global and like going through some specifics about what that employment might look like and what, policies that the company also might look like going forward. Because, there's one thing to just give Jeffrey his job and just sort of wipe this thing away. But the bigger issue that's argued in the lawsuit is the company's policy itself. So they're looking for change in that area as well.
And of course, to step back from this particular case and look at the big picture, the Crown Act is the law in 10 states and many other cities, and a number of states have their own laws inspired by the Crown Act. So, this case is just one story in a larger narrative about a certain type of racial discrimination in this country, as you said, that has to do with, quote, grooming, right, especially in the workplace. So what should we be watching out for as we follow this story?
Well, a couple of things, Tanya. First, so since this is the first of these type of cases, we're going to maybe see what type of penalties would be levied against companies that are found guilty of this. No one's ever been to court for this. So if it's a heavy fine or some type of heavy penalty, some type of heavy, slap on the wrist, that'll show other companies, not only in California, but in the 49 other states that, this is a serious offense and you can get in big trouble if you do this to Black and brown employees. So that's one thing to look forward to. But then also, like we said, there's other states that have Crown Acts as well, New York, New Jersey, Virginia, and maybe what's happening with Jeffrey inspires Black job applicants in those states to file similar lawsuits. We don't know, but this is a case that everybody's watching in this sort of natural Black hairstyle space.
Right, certainly brings attention to the matter. Well, Khristopher Brooks, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Of course, thank you.